All right. All right, folks, Steve Malzberg welcoming you back to America Talks live from our New York City studios. We have just the latest from Ohio State University, where there were reports of a shooter. We now know, according to reports, that the scene is secure, that one suspect, believed to be the lone suspect, is dead, and that 8 people have been taken to area hospitals for non-life-threatening injuries. We don't know if there were others taken, to other hospitals, or if anybody was killed. We just don't know that, other than the suspect. There's also a report from a federal law enforcement source that most of the damage done by this attacker was done with a car and a knife. I'm not going to speculate, but what playbook does that sound like? I'm just saying, it sounds like an ISIS playbook, whether it was an ISIS-inspired person or not, a Muslim or not. It sounds like, what we've seen from the ISIS playbook. Use whatever you can. So we'll await the facts as they present themselves. Joining us now on the panel, Stacy Washington, host of Stacy on the Right show, and make sure you check out stacyontheright.com, and Kurt Schlichter, trial lawyer, senior columnist at townhall.com, retired U.S. Army colonel and author of People's Republic. Welcome to both of you. All right, so let me start with you, Stacy, and let me ask you where you think we are with this whole Secretary of State deal, now that Petraeus is being interviewed and Kellyanne Conway has made her statements about Romney, and reportedly Trump is furious at Kellyanne Conway, although Roger Stone says that might not be the case. Where do you think we are? Who will be Secretary of State?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge the fact that there are some very interesting dynamics at play here, especially as it pertains to, it's kind of a disconnect, because Trump has been a real populist, man of the people, someone who Americans have looked up to as one of us. And I know that's odd because he's a billionaire and most Americans aren't billionaires, but his mode of speaking, the way that he ran the campaign, the unconventional nature of his interactions with Americans and the media, it's all played into a real sense of commiseration with him. And to have him considering seriously Mitt Romney, who is, the worst sort of non-supporter. He's the guy that if you have him on your team, he's going to let you down every single time. He was called a choke artist by Donald Trump, and I don't think that's too far off the mark in assessing his capabilities in supporting the eventual GOP nominee, as we were all forced to do when he was the nominee.
Right.
So that's why you're seeing so much angst about it. And I think Kellyanne Conway was kind of sounding the alarm bell on behalf of those constituents who their only way of reaching out to Donald Trump is social media. And I really don't think there's much to this idea that he's so upset with her. It's not like he's just met her or she's just met him. This is a relationship that they've nurtured over the past months, and she's been his campaign manager.
Right.
So I don't think he's upset with her. I do think that there's something else at play here, and that is there's a huge segment of the GOP that has to be satisfied, that has to be put back into their box, the donor class. And Mitt Romney represents them. And this appointment is an appeasement to that segment of the GOP to tamp them down and get them on board with the coming agenda.
Let's hope it's not an appointment. Kurt, what do you make of all this?
Well, Steve, I think the fact that Kellyanne Conway is getting out there and saying publicly that this can't happen is a real indicator of the feelings of a lot of folks that I think Stacy articulated very well. I'm more open to it in the sense that I kind of like the team of rivals concept, but it's very clear that a substantial number of Donald Trump's supporters, key supporters, are finding this a betrayal, and I think Donald Trump therefore can't do it. I think Romney do an okay job as long as he's kept on a short leash, and Trump was able to ensure that he was following the Trump program rather than the Romney program. But look, I like how the transition's going so far. I think they picked a lot of good people. There's some people I think that They might have picked somebody else, but I think they've been doing a good job. I love watching the mainstream media freak out over it, as if this kind of chaos isn't, and it's not even chaos, isn't endemic to any kind of transition. You're putting in 4,000 new people, you're taking over a government with a team you haven't put together yet, and you've got about 70 days to do it. It takes some time, and there's going to be some sausage making that isn't always pleasant to watch. I just love watching the mainstream media freak out about it.
They are imploding on several fronts. Now, here's something they have not imploded on. Here is Simone Sanders, who was a Bernie Sanders spokesperson, who now works for CNN, and get a load of this.
I think Keith Ellison is great. I have worked with him. He is amazing. He is a fighter, and he's committed to the issues. But
Howard Dean?
Howard Dean was there for that 50-state strategy. But here's the issue. Howard Dean is also on record maligning young people and millennials, telling those Bernie folks they just need to get in line, and maligning Bernie Sanders. And that is not what we need, in my opinion. We don't need white people leading the Democratic Party right now. The Democratic Party is diverse, and it should be reflected as so in our leadership and throughout the staff at the highest levels, from the vice chairs to the secretaries, all the way down to the people working in the offices at the DNC.
Wow, so Stacy, not only shouldn't white people, and again, one day they're going to start, people with her racist views are going to start spitting before they say white people. You mark my word, and CNN will love it. Not only is she saying white people shouldn't run the Democrat Party, all the way from the top to the bottom, apparently we don't need, or they don't need, white people. This is racist, bigoted, and CNN hasn't, as far as I know, reprimanded her, certainly not fired her. She's been on again. She doubled down on it the next day. She's been on CNN all weekend. Not a word about it anymore. And no one else is touching this.
Yeah. So, Steve, it's really, really enraging when someone like Stacy Washington says that we should tone down the amount of respect that we give to the so-called art form of rap music. That's really, really crazy, and it's like something that needs to be blogged about all over at The Atlantic and everywhere else. It needs to be widely mocked, and, goodness gracious, Stacy, how dare you say that on CNN? But when Simone Sanders opens her mouth up to basically repudiate the ability of white people to lead on the left, based solely upon the fact that they're white, not a lack of qualifications, not the fact that there have been some wrongdoings or anything of that nature, it's not only not repudiated, it's treated as a matter of course. And what I want people to pay attention to is not that it's Stacy Washington or Simone Sanders or any of the names that are involved. Look at who's saying it from the party perspective. This is a party that actually elevates this kind of discourse and treats it normally. When out in the real America, we all know that results matter, that people get hired based on their qualifications and their ability to show results from their previous activities, their accomplishments. Your accomplishments and your qualifications matter in the real world. Now, we're talking about the DNC, where they rigged the election against Bernie Sanders, a white guy, for a white woman, and a black lady did it. So clearly they've got some issues over there, and they might want to focus more on identity politics. But for Americans, once again, the Democrats are showing you that nothing matters more to them than demographic boxes. And so don't pay attention to the actual names of the people. Pay attention to what they're trying to get you to accept and refuse to.
So you're saying that you were treated differently as a black woman on CNN because you're conservative and she's not?
Absolutely. They were absolutely horrified that I was supporting Donald Trump. I was told that you're being a traitor. How can you? He's a racist. It was all about me being black and a woman supporting Donald Trump, as opposed to me supporting the policies that he put forward, which were completely opposite to Hillary Clinton.
Kurt, you've had your experiences on CNN, so have I. What do you make of this this pass given to Simone Sanders?
Well, first of all, at the threshold, let me say there's no bigger supporter of Keith Ellison for DNC
Me
chair
too.
than Kurt Schlichter. I love this because, what they really need to reach out to normal Americans is a leftist Muslim who is on record saying black should have a separate country. I think that really sums up the Democratic Party's position, and I think we should take it out there and let the voters decide. And I'm glad Simone Sanders says this thing. She shouldn't be punished. She should be criticize, which is what we're doing here. But I want her to say it, Steve. I want her to say it loud and proud, because this is the kind of insanity that these people embrace. And nothing that you or I or Stacy can say as clever and cunning as it is going to do any worse to her than just letting her talk, because what she's spewing is ridiculous. Look, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, and I'm saying to every single American out there, I just simply don't care where your great-great-grandfather came from. It means nothing to me. I don't care. You're welcome here in my party if you like freedom, if you believe in capitalism, if you like the flag,
Kurt,
if you're willing to defend it.
guys,
come on over. Let's make America great again.
Guys, thank you. Great stuff. Gotta go, Stacy and Kurt. Thank you very much. Up next, founder of Freedom Watch, Larry Klayman, will be here. He has a lawsuit against Black Lives Matter. What's that all about? We'll talk about it next. Don't go anywhere.